friends, welcome back. Thank you for joining us at Backstage Pass at PLA. I'm Tress, your most of the time host, and I am here with Jeff today, who is the Vice President of PLA, and he is fondly known around here as Papa Jeff, and I'm sure that Michelle is the one who made that happen, but I'm happy to learn if it was somebody else. And before he was the vice president, he was the VP of finance. So we are going to talk about finances for lash artists today. And this is a subject that you have taught on before with the master class, right?
I have. I've done the master class and I've done a podcast. And so I'm just trying to help out where I can.
I love it. So lash artists typically need a ton of financial help. And I'm actually like speaking from a lot of personal experience because I've been an employee, I've worked on my own, I've rented, I've had an in-house business before that was illegal most of the places. And it was something that I always really struggled with if I wasn't an employee. And so many lash artists are just, they see money walking in the door every day when they see their clients. And it's really intimidating to have to think about the numbers and like what goes into making sure that our businesses are successful and not just running. So, yeah, but I didn't give you any time to like say anything about yourself. Is there anything that you would like us to know before we like dive in?
I'm new to the beauty industry, so I've been working at PLA now for coming up on 3 years. It's been a wonderful experience, a whole new world I didn't know anything about. But like any other business, it's all about, like you said, the money coming in, the money going out, controlling your costs, maximizing your revenue, income. And so it translates to a lot of other business types. And I hope what we talk about today can help some of the smaller lash artists that are out there struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so. I know people who have actually taken the master class with you, and it completely transformed their life and their business. And that's specifically because of the time that they spent learning from you. So I would just say, I would caution anybody who is like, oh, this is about finances, I don't want to think about it, I want to just like bury my head in the sand and like keep earning my cash. Don't tune out, because I want to help give you actionable steps to be able to take in order to start getting a handle on your finances. So like, we're not going to make this big and overwhelming and scary. Like, I want to talk about it in a way that is easy to approach. You always talk about an elephant.
Eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm going to grab my first question here because I have a couple. So why do you think most lash artists, and this could be a people in general thing, but why do you think most people avoid looking at the numbers?
I think there's probably a couple reasons. A lot of people probably have this unsubstantiated fear of, I don't know what I'm looking at, so I'm just going to avoid it. Mm-hmm. Some are scared of what they might find.
Oh, I was very much one of those.
Some like to just look at the money coming in and not necessarily the expense side. Mm-hmm. So, hey, I made $1,000 today. Well, you didn't make $1,000 today, but that's how much came in the door.
Right, and that feels good.
It does. It feels great. But if you just look at the top line, you probably won't be successful in the long term. So
right.
I would guess it's just lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Once you do it a little bit, it's not super complicated if you just take it, again, in small bites, learn a little bit at a time, and figure out what works best for you and your business.
Right, right. So okay, I'm going to just pick back up. Okay, this is just on here, but we can do whatever with it. So what do you think is the first mindset shift it might take for somebody who's like, hey, I'm in beauty, I'm not in finance? Like my famous thing was I always told people I did makeup, not math. And like I kind of wore that as a badge of honor, but it was also just to like hide and like not have to deal with the math. So what do you think could be like the one shift that could take them from just counting in like the money that's coming in and going, oh, okay, like I actually feel empowered to look a little bit deeper?
I guess I would say as the owner, you have control of everything, right? You actually control how much I'm going to charge, how much money's coming in, how many clients I'm going to take. but you also charge how much am I going to spend? Where am I going to spend my money? Am I actually keeping track of where I'm spending all my money? Neither side is overly complicated. Again, it's when you think, if you step back and look at it, it's where does my money go and where does my money come from? I would think that a lot of people probably underestimate how much money is going out,
Yeah.
right? Because you forget, oh, I had to buy a set of tweezers, or I had to replenish my adhesives, or I have to get a new product that's on the market and I wanted to buy that, or I needed some supplies for my business.
Or I order lunch every day
Or
and
I order lunch every
don't
day.
take account.
Yeah, or Starbucks or whatever. Or I took people out to lunch and I expense that. The what goes out is probably a lot easier to control than what comes in.
Okay. That's really cool that like you can sort of just take back that control, and instead of being intimidated by it or scared by it, you can be like, oh, well, this is something that I do have control over. So I'm going to do what I can about it.
Absolutely. And a little bit to play off your words, I'm not good at math either, right? It's not a math game, right? It's a puzzle. It's at the end of the day, it's two numbers. It's how much money came in and how much money went out and what's left in my bank account.
Right.
And there are a lot of other things that happen other than day to day. What happens every quarter? Do I have taxes? Do I have income taxes? Do I have big expenditures that come up? Do I have to buy a new Lash bed? So it's planning for the future at the same time, but it's not necessarily math. It's really more a picture of what I want my business to look like.
Okay, that's awesome. I love that. I've never had these conversations with you, so like this is the first time that I'm getting it too, even though other people have taken the masterclass and been able to learn from you. So I would say if somebody had a first step to take, what would you suggest their first step is to starting to get more control over their finances and their income?
So the easiest thing to do, obviously, is take a look at your bank statement. Where did my money go last month? It's going to go to obvious places. Do I have a booth rental? Do I have my supplies? Do I have to pay any other employees? Do I have employees at all? I would look at all of the different outgoing categories, and I would say, are they all business related? First of all, forget the whole tax implication. And second of all, are they all necessary? Is that really what I want to be spending my money on, or would I like to have another $100 in my account at the end of the month, or another $200, or another $500? Then the other side of that's the income side. Have I done everything I can to maximize my time in my booth? Do I have as many clients as I could handle, or as many as I want? Right? The question becomes, well, do I want to make my day busier, make more money, and have maybe a little less fun time in my life? Do I do that for a short period of time, a year or two, so that I can build up my clientele and then be a little more choosy maybe with my clients?
Yeah.
But both sides, right? You can always have more clients or less. You can always have more expenses or less.
Okay. From the feedback that you've gotten from people who have learned about finance from you specifically in this industry, what do you think is the biggest thing that you've heard? Like maybe you've heard it from multiple people, or it's been like really impactful for one person. Like what's the biggest thing that you feel like people have come back to you and said, this was the thing that helped me like get a handle on things?
I would say the easiest thing to do is do your accounting as frequently as you can, so it's in little tiny pieces.
My mom used to balance her checkbook every week.
Right. My parents used to have the physical checkbook, right?
Yeah.
I had it too. Don't tell anybody.
No, it's okay.
But know where it goes every day, because then you won't be surprised at the end of the month, right?
Yeah.
Don't make it a big task at the end of the month. If you have QuickBooks or a little accounting system that you use, show where all the money is going out. You know the big ones. You know when your rent goes out. If you have insurance, you know when that goes out. But know where all those small ones go out, and just do a little bit every day.
That's wild, because if you would have told me that I could just like, I'm sure it seems simple, but if you would have been like, hey, just like look at your expenses for the day and your income for the day, if anybody had told me that when I was renting, that would have been so much less intimidating and so much easier for me to do if I just like took it one day at a time.
Right. Because you build up in your mind that this is a huge task.
And then I avoid it.
That I don't want to do. And so then the month ends and you don't want to do it at the end of the month. And then the quarter ends and you don't want to do it at the end of the quarter.
And then you end up at the end of the year with bills and papers and things everywhere.
Yep. And then it costs you more with your accountant if you have an accountant, or when you're doing your taxes, because then you have to take days and days and days to get everything all figured out. If you're doing it mostly every day, January 2nd is just as easy as, July 3rd.
Right.
It just happens, right? You're already kind of done.
Yeah.
So a little bit at a time.
Okay. Important. Like, let that sink in for a second. So one of the things that I used to talk with students about, and I always felt like I was a little underqualified to talk with them about it, but I was like, this was the thing that helped me the most, was I had no idea how much money I was making per client. Like, I needed to know what my outgoing expenses were per client. And you and I talked about it the other day. You talked about per hour that you're working. How would you break that down? Because I would say, well, maybe you could give me feedback on what I would
Sure.
say. Okay. So I usually would go, okay, let's talk about lashes. And just to get started, we're going to do like a rough guesstimate. Like, how much of a lash tray do you think you use per fill? Right? And then how much of a bottle of adhesive do you feel like you use per fill? How many micro swabs do you use per fill? Because you can take that and you can go, okay, I use 5 micro swabs per fill, and there's 100 that comes in this pack. And so you can figure out how much 5 micro swabs is. Right. And I would do it just with individual products and then add in the overhead, right?
Exactly.
Add in your rent
and any insurance.
So it's really the first step that I would help lash artists with is going, okay, how many cents and how many dollars is everything that I'm using on a single client? Because then I can know, okay, I might be making $100 on this fill, but my cost is about $20. So I'm really only making 80. And that's before I think about anything else. That's before I think about what I ate for lunch and how much it should cost and Starbucks and all of those other things.
Exactly. And part of it, you can do it by client, you can do it by hour, you could do it by month. Part of that is your equation of how many clients you want to see, right? So how far does that lash tray go? How far does that bottle of adhesive go? I like the rent's the easy one, right? If I have $1,000 a month booth rental and I see 100 clients, each client costs $10, right? So that's your first allocation of cost, right? So, I made $300. No, I made $290, right? And then I made how much for my lash trays and how much for my adhesives. You don't have to get all the way down to the tiniest penny, but
Right.
you probably have 20 expenses per client. And if you can get those down, then you have a better feel for, okay, I billed $250 or I collected $250, but it cost me $50. So I only made $200. If I see 4 clients today, I made $800. Is that a good day or a bad day? I don't know based on your requirements or your needs or your expectations, but that at least gives you a framework for deciding if it was a successful day or if you have to do more to change that income stream going forward.
Okay, so I have a question. We don't have to use it. But it's, if a lash artist wants to pay themselves on purpose instead of just like taking the money in and like spending it. So like maybe they know they're like, so people talk about P&Ls, right? Their profit and their loss, and understanding that to know how much they're bringing home. But I also know of people who will like allocate a certain amount and they'll pay themselves, right? Is that something that you would suggest they do, and how would somebody go about that? Because I know it's so easy to go, okay, well, maybe I know the math, maybe I know how much I made today, and it's not just the $500 cash that's sitting in my hand, but I still have $500 cash to go spend right now.
Right. So that's really how much control do you have over your own spending, right? If you aren't good at controlling that and you're going to spend whatever's in your hand, then absolutely. Say, I'm only willing to take $200 a day as my pay, as the amount of money that's going to come out and go into my personal spending account versus what's sitting in my total checking account or sitting in my hand. If you're really good at controlling your spending, then it's probably not as important. But I think we're all a little more suspect to saying, oh, I've got $500. I should take my friends to dinner and go out for some drinks afterwards.
Right.
So it's a good control to put in place, especially when you learn and you're new, to say, okay, I'm only willing to take $250 a day out of the account as what I earned.
Right.
And anything that's left in there, great, leave it in there and use it for future large purchases or save it for big expenditures that you have coming up. Because if you're not good at controlling that, you're going to spend every penny that you have available.
So it just puts in like a nice parameter, like so if you could figure out the amount that you're going to be making on average per day, you can go, okay, like these are my expenses. This is how much money is going to be going out. This is how much I want to save. So yeah, I'll pay myself $250 or I'll pay myself $500 if you average $800 days or whatever that looks like, right? I think the biggest thing that brings up is I know a lot of lash artists that don't have separate bank accounts for their businesses.
Okay. So that's, if I were going to make one recommendation to everybody, it would keep your business expenses and your personal expenses separate.
Because otherwise it just shows up in your bank account and it's just there.
It's just your money, right? But then you don't have any control over your business costs versus your personal costs. So you really don't know exactly what you're making on your business activities. The first thing I would do is have 2 separate bank accounts, no matter what. It's going to make your accountant's life easier, or your CPA at the end of the year to do your taxes. It's going to let you know more accurately how much you're actually making on the business. It will stop you from doing silly things like buying Starbucks and making that a business expense, because it's really not.
Yeah. Because you got it on your way to work.
Because you got it got your way to work. If you get in your car, we could talk about all the different expense categories, but
we should do that.
keep your business expenses separate, your business activity separate from your personal activity. Then back to your other point, if you decide that you want $500 a day, make that transfer from your business account to your personal account. Go spend that $500 any way you want. And then go back and look at your business account. It should be growing, right? There should be more and more cash in there if you're controlling how much you're taking out.
Right.
But if you let everything go into your one account, we all do the same thing, right? Hey, I've got money. I'm going to go spend it.
Right. I had a friend once. She wasn't in the beauty industry, but she worked for herself. And I remember her looking at me and we talked about how well her business was doing. It was thriving. And she was like taking her friends out and like doing all of these like things that to me were really extravagant. And I was like, wow, you're like doing really great. But, and she's like, oh yeah, as soon as I hit like a certain number in my checking account, because everything went into her checking account, as soon as I hit a certain number in my checking account, I spend it, like, because it's there. And so I talked to her about like financial wealth, help me out here, planners, right?
Sure.
And she was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I was like, you need that right now. Right now you need that.
Right. When you have extra money, I mean, it doesn't just mean spend, right?
But it does to a lot of people.
If you're really planning for your future, do I have an IRA? Do I have access to a 401k? Am I investing anything for the future? Am I going to have to pay income tax at the end of the year? Am I getting ready for all of those irregular expenses that come up?
Right.
Do I have a once a quarter common area maintenance bill from my landlord? There are lots of things that can surprise people, right? If I have employees, have I paid all my payroll taxes? Do I have any other local license fees that I have to pay once a year? So
apps, I'm going to add in like editing apps and things that you use for like marketing and stuff. The amount of apps that I have definitely adds up at the end of the year.
Yeah. So if you limit yourself to how much money you take out and you keep your business expenses separate from your personal, then hey, I've built up enough money to pay my income taxes. I've built up enough money to pay for a new round of advertising because I want to do it on the radio, or I want to do flyers, or I want to do an Instagram post, and I'm going to need an expert to help me.
Right.
So separating all of your business activity from your personal is key.
So you talked about expenses. We've been talking about expenses a lot, but I mean specifically according to like what we think are expenses or what might not be. What are the things that you see people do on a regular basis and try to expense that like they really can't, and it's really BS at the end of the day? Yeah,
there's a easy term at the IRS that says a regular and ordinary expense, right?
Okay.
So if you have a regular and ordinary requirement to spend money, I call it the everyman rule or the every person rule. What would any normal person look at and say that's a business expense? It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, that is pretty simple.
Is going out and buying martinis for your friends at lunch is fun? Yes. But is it a business expense? Probably not.
Right. Like everybody's like, oh, I'm going to write this off anyway. At what point can you get in trouble for that?
You can get in trouble from day one, but you won't get in trouble until you're audited, right? right?
Yeah.
I think it's a 7-year period that the IRS can go back and question all of your returns. Your CPA or your accountant's just going to put the numbers on the lines for whatever you say. This was a business expense.
And they go, okay.
Okay, but was it really, right? They're not checking. So it's up to you as the business owner to make sure that you're not being overly generous with what's a business expense.
Okay.
So mileage, if you drive your car to and from your house to your work every day, that's not a business expense. But if you drive to the supply store to buy supplies, that is a business expense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a great question at the masterclass was, well, if I drive from home to the supply store to work, can I expense all that? Well, no, only the second leg, right?
Yeah.
Or deducting what my normal commute was from that total trip. So it can get very detailed, but again, was it necessary to conduct my business activities? Driving to your CPA to hand off all your paperwork, clearly a business expense. Driving to lunch, not so much, because you have to go to lunch every day, whether you're working or not.
So say I had a lash artist come in for a training, right? And say I'm in my own space. I had a lash artist come in for a training. Say I bought cookies and coffee and treats and pizza for lunch and champagne for the end of class. Would I be able to expense all of those items because another lash artist came to me and wanted to learn from me and spent time with me at my business?
So again, I'm going to say most likely, but is it normal and ordinary, right? If you do this once a quarter, because every quarter you're going to have one of these classes and one of these events, then I think that's a really normal activity. If you just decide, hey, it's Friday, and most Fridays
It's
I'm
Champagne
going
Friday.
to invite people over to have champagne, then I would say no.
Okay.
Right? That's more of clearly a party than it is having a business reason.
Right.
So if you set it up, there are reasons to have meals, right? That you are wooing a client or coworkers or those kind of things. But if they're too often or too egregious, too over the top, anybody's going to a normal person would look at that and say, that's not a business expense, right? You're having too much fun. You're out drinking. Alcohol's a hard one, right?
Yeah.
You said the champagne. If you do champagne toast at the end of your class and it's once a quarter, I could totally justify that. If you decide every Friday is Champagne Friday, probably not as much.
Champagne Friday sounds.
It does sound
like
great.
a good plan, though.
I was going to institute it here. We'll start. It's Friday. Hey, look!
Right.
Yay!
Right.
Let's go.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle's out of town. We won't tell anybody.
Oh man. Okay. So then I have a question. It's just something that like popped up for me, but like knowing other people who have owned businesses, and when I had my own, I had an accountant that was a family friend.
Sure.
Right. And so I don't know. Like he always seemed like a very by the books guy, and then like I don't know. He constantly told me I didn't have enough business expenses. He constantly told me like you need more write-offs, you need more things to expense. Like, can you explain that a little bit? Because I was like, this should be a good thing. Like,
Right.
I'm not spending a ton of money. Like I'm like doing what I need to do, but I'm bringing in most of the money and keeping it, right? So like, why would somebody tell you you don't have enough expenses, you need to go spend more money?
Sure. I remember college professor said it's called tax avoidance, not tax evasion. So what you're trying to do is avoid taxes, right? Right up to the line of what you're legally allowed to do. So if you bring in $500 and you have no expenses against that, you get taxed on $500. If you have $100 in expenses, you only get taxed on $400. If you have $200 in expenses, you only get taxed on $300. So the goal is to pay as little taxes as you can up to the line that it is all permissible and legal. If you're not capturing all your business expenses, that's where your CPA or your family friend was telling you, make sure you have all of your expenses captured.
He was just telling me to spend more money on my business,
If you
quote
have
unquote.
if you have extra money and you want to spend it on your business and you can afford to do that, all the dollars you spend on your business reduce your amount of income, so it reduces your taxes.
Right.
But again, he's telling you most CPAs aren't going to audit what you give them. You're going to say, I had $500 in expenses, and they're going to write $500 on the expense line. It's up to you to know if those $500 in expenses were all permissible.
Right.
So You want to capture everyone you can, though. You don't want to miss any. Hey, if I did take a client out to lunch, yes, I can expense that. I want to do that. Hey, if I did buy new advertising online, on Facebook, on Instagram, that's expense, right? You want to make sure you capture all those, which again goes back to having your own bank account for work.
Right.
And probably your own credit card for work, so that all of the things that are related to your business activities, you capture all those expenses. So just to spend money to have expenses is a little bit problematic. If you have extra money, invest it, find a way to put it into an IRA, find a way to invest for the future, or save it for big expenses that you know are coming.
Yeah. I think it's fun, like interesting that you say save it for big expenses that you know are coming. I feel like most people find they have the big expense and didn't know it was coming.
Yeah. And income taxes is the worst, right? I didn't plan for my taxes. I didn't save $10 out of every 100 and just put it in a savings account because I know in April I'm going to have to pay income taxes on whatever net I made. It's like the one bite at a time, right? Save a little bit at a time. It doesn't hurt. If you don't do that, it's going to hurt a lot in March, April, or May.
Yeah.
So, and I had a slide that said, oops, I have more expenses, right? It's just like, you don't want to be surprised. You should know your business well enough to know when quarterly taxes are due if you have employees, or when insurance payments are due if you pay for an annual amount of insurance, or when your income taxes are due. You shouldn't be surprised by those. You should be planning for those as much as possible. And again, $5 at a time.
Right.
Open a savings account and just put a little bit in, or $10 per every 100 that you bring in for taxes.
So as we're talking about all of these things, it makes sense. It sounds relatively easy.
Sure.
But when somebody who's listening to this sits down to go, okay, I'm just going to do all of this stuff now because I haven't done this stuff. Like I haven't had a separate bank account. I have no idea how much I actually make. I have to figure out what my profits and losses are. When they sit down to do that, that can be like, that's what we talked about in the beginning, when you like really, really pull back, right? So if somebody wanted to sit down and work out their profits and losses, or work out how much money they need to make for taxes, do you know of any resources that could help make it easier for them? Or do you have a suggestion of where they would start? Would you just like start listing it in a Google sheet, or what does that look like for them to like actually take action and get started on that?
Sure. If you're making enough money, I would subscribe to an online accounting program, whether it's QuickBooks or something similar. There are 50 of them out there, and nothing that most lash artists do is that complicated. There's not that many categories. If you don't want to spend that money, a sheet's fine, right? What was my income on this day? What were my expenses that were daily? What were my expenses that are monthly or periodic? You could also then say, how many clients did I take in? So then we could go back to the beginning and say, well, I had 3 this day and 8 that day and 2 the other day. I had a total of 100 clients this month. I paid $1,000 in rent, so I allocate $10 to each client. It'll give you that bigger picture of what was my real profit per customer, per client. If you can afford the QuickBooks or something similar, I think they're $30 or $40 a month.
And expensible?
Absolutely an expense. That is a business expense, bar none. It ties into your checkbook. It brings all the activity in for you. And then all you do is you click and say, this one is a client expense. This is a supplies expense. This is a rent expense. And at the end, you can print your own income statement. Not to scare anybody, an income statement's easy, right? What did I make and what did it cost and how much did I make at the end of the day? If you can afford that, it's probably the easiest way to do it, because then, like we talked about, go in each morning, bring in yesterday's transactions, take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Categorize each of the transactions. You're done. You're an accountant. You just did your accounting, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to know debits and credits. You don't have to know any of that activity. Just do your best to get it into the right buckets.
Okay, that's really cool. That's like, that feels doable. That feels relatively easy. Like the hardest part about that is just making sure that you like get the resource.
That you do it and that you don't let it stack up, right? Because then you'll get to the end of the month and you go, oh crap, I have to now go spend 2 hours to do all the activity. I don't have 2 hours. I'd rather either go out with my friends or have another client. So I would do it. I would go into work 10 minutes early, get used to the process. It's really quick. And you'll be happy at the end of the month or at the end of the week, at any point in
Right.
time, you can see how you're really doing.
So what if somebody's listening and they're like, crap, I don't do any of this. I don't know any of this. And I'm speaking from experience because years ago when I was a solo lash artist, that would be my moment. I would be like, I don't do any of this. Cause I didn't at the time. So but if you're me,
Yep.
I would have completely overcomplicated it and been like, I have to go back through the entire last year and figure out everything and like know all of this stuff. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you could just start today and have like today be day 0 and just do the next thing tomorrow and then like do the next thing tomorrow.
Exactly.
Is that true?
You can start at any time, right? Start now.
And you don't have to go backwards a million years.
If you have the time to go back to the beginning of the year, hey, it's perfect time. It's the end of March, right? It's only 3 months. There's only a certain amount of activity. Start today. Start doing all your normal activity. Once you get good at that, then when you go backwards, you'll go, oh, look, my rent always goes to the rent category. My supplies that I bought from PLA always go to my supplies category, right? You click, you go through then you did your year. So it's always easy if you have a whole year because, again, your accountant's they're going to love you. It's going to cost you less to do your taxes because you're going to give them access to your QuickBooks file. They're going to log on from their office. They're going to say, do you have receipts for all these? You're going to say, yep, I've got them somewhere, or I scanned them in and attached them, another whole magic activity, and they're going to go file your return.
Yeah.
If they say, give me your bank statements, and now I, as the accountant, have to go and spend 10 hours doing all your work for you at $200 an hour, you just, right? Why blow $2,000 on that when you could have just spent five minutes a day? But start now.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to start now.
Right.
If you get to the point where you can go backwards a couple months, great. If you get to the end of the year and say to your accountant, hey, I've got to give you bank statements for the first 3 months, but the rest of it's done. Again, you minimize the amount of time they have to spend working on your file, reduces your expense, total amount you have to pay them.
It can be so scary. Like, yes, start. Yes, go get your own bank account and like do the thing one piece at a time. But it can be so scary for lash artists that they don't have a resource and they don't have a friend that they can talk to about what they did with their business or like mistakes that were made,
Yep.
And so for me listening to this, wishing that I had this conversation 12 years ago,
Sure.
right? It feels less scary, but like everything is less scary when you have somebody to do it with.
Right.
So at the time I had a business partner friend, like we weren't ever like in business together, but we did business side by side.
Sure.
And having her was like the thing that really, really saved me so many times because I had somebody in my life that I could turn to and go, this is what I'm struggling with, or I don't know what to do with this, or what do I do with this expense? And we were able to like bounce it off each other and pool resources essentially. But having somebody as like a partner to kind of like hold your hand through it was what really made me be able to not tank my business. Because if I was like on my own doing that, I don't know how long I would have been able to continue running it.
That's fair. What's amazing is everybody knows somebody who runs a business, right? Whether it's your family member or your best friend or your best friend's spouse. There's so many people that run their own businesses. And really, it doesn't matter if it's a lash business or a concrete company, right? It's the same concepts. Do I have control of my money going out and how am I generating money coming in, right? And so any client-based business, you can ask for advice or for thoughts or direction. It seems like there should be more resources for people just to be able to say, hey, as a lash artist, where's my community to help me learn the basics and start? And maybe that's an opportunity. So
I remembered my forgotten thought.
I'm ready.
Thanks. I was literally going to ask you about resources, right?
Okay.
Like if somebody, like you said QuickBooks, but it was before that I was thinking about it, where would somebody to go, what the heck can I expense and what can't I? How would somebody learn about like, what did you say? Like common
expenditures for the company.
That's it.
Or business expenses.
Right. Like how would are there resources that they can go to go, oh, okay, I can expense this, but I can't expense this?
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is everybody that's not a certified public accountant or a financial planner has to say, I can't give you financial advice, but, right?
Okay.
Google's the easiest thing in the world. There are 8 trillion people running their own businesses, and there's plenty of blogs out there to give you mostly accurate information, right? Don't rely on any one thing, unless it's something like the ALA or something that's a group that you belong to that you know is a professional services group. Don't read it. If you have time to read our IRS documents, God bless you. Good luck. They're just so complicated.
Yeah.
Right? So, but the basics are, if I Google, I do it every now and then. I'll say, hey, there's a new accounting standard I need to learn. I'll just go online. I'll find 3 or 4 different sources. I'll make sure that they're all saying the same thing. If they're not, I'll push the one out that's different. Do my best. And at the end of the day, again, your accountant or your CPA is always somebody that you can bounce questions off of. But find somebody, a trusted partner, like you said, you worked next to somebody. Find a family member or find a friend that's also doing something similar or has done it. And almost everybody's willing to help people that they know. There's small business, there's chamber of commerces. Each town has, go to your city or your town's website and say, starting a small business, right? There are going to be some that cost money, and there are probably some that are either free or can at least direct you to some free advice.
Yeah.
The Chamber of Commerce's in little towns, that's their whole goal, is to grow businesses.
I tell so many people to go to their chamber, and I'm like, even to get clients, like you can make so many connections there, but you connect with other business people.
Yep.
I think a lot of lash artists are intimidated to go to a chamber of commerce because they're like, I'm just little old me. Like, I've literally heard people say that, like, I'm just little me. And these are like, in their mind, they're like these big built up like business people.
Sure.
And, everybody is also just figuring out what they're doing at this stage in life too. So like,
Well, and everybody
it's okay.
started at the same place,
Right.
right? The first time the concrete company president decided to start a business, he or she didn't know anything about it, right? So I'm never afraid to say, hey, I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but I have to ask a stupid question.
Right.
And 99 times out of 100, I'll get nothing but help. And you know what? You grow thick skin on that last 1 out of 100 times when somebody says something silly.
Right.
So, but the Chamber of Commerce wants to help you, right?
That's literally, yes.
That's their whole reason for existence. Or other business groups. I mean, there are all kinds of social groups that are business related. Go into your bank and ask your bankers who they work with as far as growing businesses or who they have references for. If you have a CPA or an accountant, ask them for references on helping to build a small business or a startup business. Your landlord, if you're renting a facility.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same goal, right? If you're successful, everybody around you becomes successful. It's a, what's that called? It builds on itself. So don't be afraid just to reach out and ask, right? I'm new, I'm starting, what resources are available?
That's so cool. If you're intimidated to do that though, Google. I like coming back to that. It's interesting. Like my husband, he used to rehab homes and like work in like building maintenance and that kind of thing. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, you know how to do everything. And I was always really impressed with it too. Not saying that I'm not today, but I was, because like he knew, like he was skilled in his craft, but he told me one day, he was like, I didn't know how to fix that. I just looked it up on YouTube and I fixed it, And I think that some people really, and I wasn't even thinking of it, right? So some people really discount the resources that could be the easiest, like low hanging fruit to grab, because they think that it has to be more complicated than that.
Oh,
and like,
absolutely.
I remember he needed to fix like this giant washing machine and he had no idea how, but he just looked it up on YouTube with like a make and model number and fixed it. And everybody was like, wow. And he's like, I watched a 15-minute YouTube video first.
Yeah, the first time I took a truck door apart and replaced a motor for a window that wouldn't roll all the way up, I spent 15 minutes on the video. I put it on my phone next to me.
Yes.
When I got stuck, I went right back to rewind, do it again. I don't really get it. Why can't I get this damn piece out? And after I watched 2 or 3, I figured it out. So yeah, this is not the rocket science part. Isn't running the business. It's being a lash artist, right?
Right.
That's where you have to be.
Thanks.
That's where you have to be skilled. The running the business side, because all businesses need basically the same foundations and the same ideas. So it's been done a million times. There are resources available.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything that you would add that we haven't covered that you would want our audience to know?
I guess I would say, you touched on it, but don't be afraid to ask, right? I'm the same way, right? If I don't know something, you get a little bit self-conscious and you get a little bit worried. What are they going to think of me that I should know that? It doesn't matter, right? It's worth putting yourself out there a little bit to take that little tiny bit of risk and be ready, right? If somebody makes fun of you or somebody's not as nice as they should be or downplays it, so what? Move on, right? But when you need to know something, ask for help. Ask your friends and ask your family. Start there. I would do that every time because you'll be amazed at how many people go, oh, John ran a business and it was just like this. And he ran into a problem with the local licensing board and he went through it. I'm sure if you bought him lunch, he would tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Business expense, right? Because you're learning about your business. So, right? So don't be afraid to ask.
Okay, cool. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you guys have more questions or need help or you are in a place where you need encouragement or resources or anything, write into us at backstagepass@plapro.com and let us know if you have any questions. Let us know if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, whether it's like technical and financial and detailed or artistry or business or whatever. We're here for it and we want to know. So thank you for being here with us and we'll see you soon.